Great. And Alexa,
Yes.
um, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see so many people here. You already know about Soho Press since you are here already and hopefully enjoying Library Day of Dialogue. But if you don't, we are an independent publisher based in New York City. We have three imprints: Soho Crime, which many of you may be familiar with a specific focus on international or place-based fiction. We have a literary imprint, Soho Press. And we have a teen imprint that publishes YA, that is Soho Teen. So if you're not familiar already, it's very nice to meet you and welcome. I'm going to be talking about some of our most exciting upcoming titles, most of which fall within the summer or fall 2021 spans. And if I neglected to, if I neglect to say it further on in the book buzz, please, you can always either request DRCs via our Day of Dialogue booth, or you can always write to us, reach out, and request galleys. We want to get books in as many hands as possible. So without further ado, I am going to be talking about Blueskin Gods. I'm going to start with our Soho Press titles and go by imprint. So the upcoming few titles are all literary fiction. So Blueskin Gods, I'm really excited about this one. This is a November 2021 release. It is our big literary title for the fall by S.J. Sindhu. S.J. Sindhu, if you guys aren't familiar with her, she is the author of The Marriage of a Thousand Lies, which won the Publishing Triangle Edmund White Debut Fiction Award. Kind of a mouthful, but an awesome prize. And she was also, that book was also a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award, as well as an ALA Stonewall Honor Book. Blueskin Gods is a groundbreaking novel about faith, identity, and also finding one's path in life. And side note, it is an excellent book club pick for anyone who is looking for literary novels that make good book club picks and good discussions. So this is the story of a boy, Kalki, who is born with blue skin in Tamil Nadu, India, and has been raised to believe that he is the reincarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu. He's raised to believe that he can perform miracles and does so under the guidance of his father. But when his aunt falls ill when he's still a young boy and his powers fail him and she passes away, he discovers the truth, which is that he has been brought up within a lie. He is not the reincarnation of the god Vishnu, and his father has been cashing in on his quote unquote miracles. As Kalki grows up, a lot of this follows him as a young man in his 20s. He has to face the facts and find himself anew, and come to terms with the fact that he is not a god but fraudulent, and like I said, find his true place in the world. And that journey takes him to New York City, where he forms a punk band called the Blueskin Gods. He travels from his ashram in India to the United States, like I said, and attempts to come to terms with his true identity and again, find his place in the world. This one is getting so many rave reviews already, including a blurb from Roxane Gay, who said, "The richness of this story will take hold of you and never let go." And we can say we're obviously biased, but that is true. So if you have time, also check out S.J. Sindhu's video, which I believe you can view in our booth or on our YouTube page. I'll say that she does a lot better job of pitching her book than I do, and it is very kind of a fun way to meet her while we're all still virtual. So check that out. Next up is summer fun. I mean, I'm just gonna say I'm excited about all of these titles, and it's always true because we have so many awesome titles coming up. This one is by acclaimed author Jean Thornton. It is an epic singular look at fandom, creativity, longing, and also trans identity. Um, this story focuses on Gala, who is a young trans woman. She works at a hostel in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, which I think everyone on Soho staff learned is a real place in New Mexico, Truth or Consequences, which is fun to begin with. She is obsessed with the Get Happies, who are the quintessential and Beach Boys-esque 1960s California band. Its lead singer, B, she is particularly obsessed with. B has faded quite mysteriously into obscurity. Gala wants to know, why did the band stop making music? Why did they never release their rumored album Summer Fun? Again, some people will recognize a corollary to Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. And all of these questions remain unanswered for Gala until one day, Caroline, a cis woman, shows up at the hostel and she is searching for her grandmother. And Gala, because of her obsession with the Get Happies, realizes that B and Caroline's grandmother may be related and their two quests may intertwine. I won't give up the rest, but I will say this really has kind of tones of Autograph Man by Zadie Smith, not the most recent novel, but one of my favorites, and I think anyone who loves that novel will love Summer Fun. And it also has a little Cavalier and Clay vibe. But Jean is an incredible writer, and this search for this mysterious genius becomes twins itself with Gala's search for herself. It's an exploration of creation, of music, of identity, of culture, and also counterculture. And I neglected to say that this isn't an historical novel. It actually takes place in kind of around 2010, but it does again deal a lot with 60s pop culture. One thing I've already neglected to mention, the most exciting thing for me is that this is actually an epistolary novel. However, the all of the letters are from Gala to B. So they are well, I guess I won't give any kind of spoilers, but they're unanswered long letters and they just form this beautiful, beautiful, albeit one-sided dialogue from Gala herself. So that is Summer Fun, a brilliant and magical work of trans literature that marks Thornton as one of our most exciting and original novelists. Okay, next up, we have Malefactor. This is the third in series for by Robert Rapino. Sorry, I'm already swallowing my words. This is the epic conclusion to the War with No Name series, and it is an explosive final novel. Readers who are familiar with Rapino's work will be familiar with the previous books in the series, Mort and Dark. That is all to say, all of our series are kind of geared towards you could jump in, you could kind of jump on the first two and catch up with Malefactor. But either way, I would highly, highly recommend this very loved series. It has a very large fan base. So we hope you become a part of it too. A little bit about the plot to entice you. Over a decade has passed since the Ant Queen began her apocalyptic war with the humans. In the aftermath, she leaves behind a strange legacy, a race of uplifted animals, the Queen's conscripts in the war effort, who are now trying to make their way in the world they destroyed. While the conflict has left deep scars, it has also allowed both sides to demonstrate the feats of courage and compassion that were never possible before. And now, after years of bloodshed, the survivors have a fleeting chance to build a lasting peace. However, peace always comes with a price. The holy city of Hosanna, where animals and humans form a joint government, finds itself surrounded by wolves who are determined to retake the land. A powerful matriarch has united the rival wolf packs using a terrible power harnessed by the queen herself. So enter our heroes, the war hero Mort, who suspects a plot to destroy Hosanna from within and recruits a team of unlikely allies to investigate, and Dark, who learns that the wolves may have triggered a new lifestyle cycle for the colony, bringing a final reckoning to animal and human alike. The outcasts begin a journey into wolf territory to face the last remnant of the Queen's empire. So, if it's not all evident already, this is kind of Animal Farm meets Watership Down. So, if either of those two strike a chord with you, I would highly recommend picking this up. But it is at the same time completely unique and singularly thrilling. So, that is Malefactor. Okay, we're going to move on to Soho crime titles now. I will say that a lot of these, actually, especially the historical ones, are great for literary readers as well. If you're not a huge crime fan, but like an historical fiction piece, especially these first two that I'm talking about, I would still highly recommend. So still stay tuned. First up is Clark and Division. This is one of our most anticipated novels for the summer, maybe for the whole year, by Naomi Hirahara. This is set in 1944 Chicago, and for those of you not familiar with Naomi, she is an Edgar Award-winning crime writer who has been publishing crime fiction for a very long time, to much acclaim. This is her first time publishing a book with Soho Press, and we could not be more excited to have her. She will also be at the Day of Dialogue today on a mystery panel, so we hope you check that out. I believe that information is in our booth as well. But to focus on Clark and Division, why you're all here, this is a new mystery and a poignant exploration of the after effects of the World War II incarceration of Japanese Americans. The plot follows 20-year-old Aki Ito, and her parents have just been released from Manzanar, where they were detained by the US government during the war. Their life in California, they find, is gone. Instead, they are resettled 2,000 miles away in Chicago, where Aki's older sister, Rose, was moved to the new Japanese American neighborhood near Clark and Division Streets. Anyone who's familiar with Chicago, that will ring a bell. But on the eve of their family reunion, Rose is killed by a train. Aki, of course, is stunned and devastated. Officials quickly rule Rose's death a suicide. However, Aki's instinct tells her that is not the truth and there is more to the story, and she is the only person who can discover what really happened to her beloved sister. This is inspired by historical events, and it infuses an atmospheric and heartbreaking real crime fiction plot with rich period details, which Naomi is amazing at recreating, and is also delicately wrought personal stories that she has gleaned from 30 years of research and archival work in Japanese American history. This, again, like I said, this book has received so much praise. I mean, we cannot fit all of the blurbs that we have on the jacket, let alone hardly on, even on our website. Um, and some of the literary luminaries that love this book include Attica Locke, Michael Connolly, George Takei, Sarah Paretsky, and many, many more. So this is a must read for crime fiction fans. And like I said, if you're a fan of historical fiction, I would definitely recommend it as well. And again, tune into the panel to hear Naomi talk about her work, along with some other excellent mystery writers. Okay, next up, another incredible Soho crime author, Sujata Massey. And I hope many of you are familiar with her fantastic Agatha and Edgar award-winning Perveen mystery series set in 1920s Bombay, India. The Bombay Prince is the third and highly anticipated installment. Again, if you haven't been following the series, but your interest is piqued, please jump in at 3, or we have, the first 2 readily available. This is an incredible, rich historical mystery series that follows Bombay solicitor Perveen Mystery, a character who is based on India's real first female lawyer, Cornelia Sarabji. As a woman, Perveen finds herself in delicate situations that sometimes that the police either ignore or don't have access to because they are, predominantly male or all male in this historical case. In the Bombay Prince, she is compelled to bring justice to the family of a murdered female Parsi student, just as Bombay's streets erupt in riots to protest British colonial rule. So again, if you've been following this series, you know that kind of it has been leading up to this huge historical moment in India's history where riots and protests start to really gain momentum. So we are really excited for that. At the beginning of the novel, Perveen isn't surprised when local unrest over the arrival of Prince of Wales spirals into riots, but she's horrified by the death of Frenny Cuttingmaster, a young Parsi student who falls from the second floor gallery just as the prince's procession is passing by her college. The kind of catch here is that Frenny, the young woman who died, had visited Perveen the day before with a kind of suspicious query that in the moment Perveen didn't pay much attention to, but now that Frenny has winded up murdered, or rather, as the authorities say, just passed away from a tragic accident, Perveen puts herself on the case to find the truth. At the same time, as anyone familiar with the series will know, Sujata does an amazing job weaving in Perveen's own personal kind of story or what's going on in her personal life into her cases. And while it's not exactly her personal life, in this, Perveen is kind of faced with the rising dangers of the riots themselves and concerned about her own family's safety. And at the same time, she's balancing trying to get justice for this young woman. So that is Bombay Prince. Again, highly recommended for crime fiction fans and historical fiction fans alike. Another excellent book club pick, I'll say. Okay, House of Ashes by Stuart Neville. Stuart Neville is the king of Belfast noir. If you haven't heard of Stuart before, if you're at all interested in Irish noir, I would highly recommend it. He has been recognized pretty much by too many accolades to name, though I will try to name a few. Among them, the Los Angeles Times Book Prize, the Edgar McCavity and Anthony Awards. So he is a storied crime writer who has excellent series and standalones alike under his belt. His upcoming novel, The House of Ashes, which is out in September, is a psychological thriller perfect for fans of Gillian Flynn and Tana French. And I don't make those comps lightly. This is absolutely, being a personal fan of those authors, I just went through House of Ashes in like a single night. So I would highly recommend it if either of those two authors are always on your must-read list. This is the haunting story of a Northern Irish murder that has gone 60 years buried. And yes, there is also a ghost. So there is kind of a creepy factor as well. Perfect for Halloween time and fall time, I'll add. The story follows Sarah, whose husband Damien has moved them to his native Northern Ireland for what he calls a fresh start. I put those in heavy quotes, in the wake of Sarah's nervous breakdown. sorry, this happens in the contemporary story. I'll get to the murder 60 years buried in a second. Sarah, who knows no one in Northern Ireland, is jobless, carless, and friendless, and soon realizes that she is a prisoner in her own house, and realizes that her husband is not really the man that she thought he was. Things take a turn for the worse when one day an old woman beats on Sarah's door, insisting that the house is hers before she is quickly swept back up and away to her care facility. The interaction obviously rattles Sarah, who also begins to experience the hints of a haunting within the house itself, including mysterious bloodstains, ghostly kind of apparitions, and among other things, strange noises in the night. So Sarah, compelled by this visit and also her own trapped situation, begins to unearth the house's terrible history, which her husband is intent on keeping hidden from her. As the two women, Mary and Sarah, form a bond over their shared traumas, we also get a POV from Mary herself when she was a young girl that reveals the things that happen in the house that Sarah is investigating. Sarah finds the strength to stand up to her abusive husband, and Mary, as well, silent for 6 decades, is finally ready to tell the story of what happened to her in this house. So this it is completely chilling, I will say, but House of Ashes is a gorgeous portrait of violence and resilience as well, with subtle layers of Irish history built in there too. On to the next, Bitter Taste of Murder. Okay, so this is a little change of pace. This is a more traditional kind of mystery. It is certainly not cozy in any way, but it's definitely comfort food for any traditional mystery fans. The Bitter Taste of Murder by Camilla Trinchieri. This is the follow-up to Murder in Chianti, which some of you might be familiar with, but even more so than our other series, this kind of can function as a standalone as well. If you're just looking for an excellent Tuscan, Italian, delicious mystery to jump into for the summer. If you're still not ready to kind of take those, we're still not at the place where we can kind of travel so freely. So this is an excellent way to armchair travel for a nice trip to Italy in the summer. It follows ex-NYPD detective Nico Doyle, who has moved to a small town in Italy to be closer to his late wife's family and also to grieve and start anew. However, of course, he is routinely roped into these investigations that the kind of local, more rural police department is not really equipped to solve. In this case, 1 year has passed since he's moved to Gravina. He's fully settled into life there, seeing friends in the course of daily errands and helping serve and test recipes in his in-laws restaurant. But the town is shaken by the arrival of wine critic Michel Mantelli. He arrives in a flashy Jaguar. He totally interrupts this kind of rural way of life. And he also holds a lot of influential sway in the culinary world through his very prominent blog, and he begins to kind of target some of Gravina's vintners and restaurateurs, giving them bad reviews and clearly kind of holding too much sway over the future of their small businesses. So he pretty much either impresses or ticks off all of Gravina's residents, including Nico's landlord, whose vineyard Mantelli seems intent on ruining. Now, pretty soon into the book, suspiciously, this famous wine critic, Michel Mantelli, ends up murdered, poisoned by a glass of wine that he was drinking. And Nico is immediately recruited to help solve the case. At the same time, they may involve some people he knows in this sleepy town and this idyllic life that he's created for himself. So I won't give away any more spoilers. There is a fun dog companion in this book too, which I find very charming. But for a traditional, traditional mystery for the summer, I would highly recommend this one, The Bitter Taste of Murder. And that is out in August. Moving on. A total change of pace, though we're still within the crime fiction realm, is Midnight Water City. This is by Hawaii author Chris McKinney, his first entry in a brilliant new sci-fi noir trilogy that explores the sordid past of a murdered scientist, deified in death by her society, through the eyes of the man who once committed unspeakable crimes for her. So like I said, this is a big change of pace. We actually don't publish too much in this realm in the sense of like, we don't publish too much crime in sci-fi at the same time, but this particular series is so remarkable, we had to jump on it. It is completely unique and really great for any fans of noir and any kind of sci-fi crossover. But even if you're not a huge sci-fi reader, I would highly recommend it. A little bit about the plot itself and the world. It is the year 2142. Earth is 40 years past a near collision with the asteroid Sheshoseki. Akira Kimura, the scientist responsible for eliminating this threat, has reached the heights of celebrity. She is essentially has saved the entire world. Again, approaching kind of this level of deification. But now Akira feels her safety is under threat. So after years without contact, she reaches out to her former head of security, our main character, who has since become a police detective in this kind of rough and tumble noirish world. When he arrives at her deep sea home, I neglected to mention the fact that the world has gone underwater. Um, he finds Akira methodically dismembered. At that point, he decides to risk everything, his career, his family, even his own life, and delve back into a shared past with Akira to find her killer. So it again, it is a thrilling, almost procedural, noirish sci-fi kind of adventure in a way. This series starter is perfect for crime and sci-fi fans alike, with shades of Altered Carbon and even HBO's The Watchmen in some way in terms of kind of the scope of its world building. It has a with a rich cinematic voice and burning cynicism. Midnight Water City is both a thrilling neo-noir procedural and a stunning exploration of research, class, climate change, the cult of personality, and also more than anything, the dark sacrifices we are willing to make in the name of progress. That is Midnight Water City. I think the cover gives a great vibe of kind of if you whether or not you'll be interested. Okay, hard pivot to our Soho Teen titles really quickly before I let you guys go. You've been so patient and listening to me talk for 20 minutes. I want to mention two upcoming Soho Teen titles that we have that you might want to check out. The first is The Problem with the Other Side by debut author Kwame Ivory. This is a searing YA debut that follows the joys, complexities, and heartbreaks of an interracial romance between high school sophomores that blossoms specifically during a volatile school election. The two main characters are Yuli and Sally. Yuli would rather watch old westerns with his new girlfriend Sally than get involved in his school's politics. Why focus on the bad and the ugly when his days with Sally are so good? His older sister Regina feels differently though, and one day, when she says she is fed up with the way white school body president candidate Leona Walls talks about Black students, she asks Yuli to support her as her campaign manager to run against Leona in order to beat her. The only problem is that Leona is Sally's sister, and at the same time, Sally has been asked by Leona to help run her campaign. Sally has no interest in managing her sister's campaign, but she's compelled to say yes because after their parents' death, Leona is practically her only family. Even after Leona is accused of running a racist campaign that targets the school's students of color, including Sally's boyfriend Yuli, she wants to give her sister the benefit of the doubt. However, how long can she ignore the ugly truth behind Leona's actions? Now, I kind of focus on the more the politics part. I will say this is in dual POV. A lot of it has the voice and tone and read of that romance between Yuli and Sally. So it is a really interesting mix of focusing on that romance and also how it comes into conflict with the more ugly realities of their world, both of their high school and of course of the world at large. So together and apart, Yuli and Sally must navigate their loyalty to their siblings and also their loyalty to each other as the campaign spirals towards a devastating conclusion. And I don't want to mince words if you are looking for YA titles. This book is about romance in a high school relationship, but it does broach, as probably is already obvious, difficult topics. There are acts of racism and bigotry, racist language, and there is an act of gun violence in this book. Kwame wraps it all into a serious treatment of what contemporary teens face on a day-to-day basis, joys and heartbreaks included. And I neglected to mention, like, we're really excited to have Kwame on board as this debut author, but he's also a high school teacher, and you can kind of tell if you jump into this even on the first page that he has really embraced that voice and can render it very, very accurately, as well as kind of, again, this day-to-day life of a contemporary teenager in the country. So that is The Problem with the Other Side. Lastly, before we say goodbye, we have another teen title that is a good crossover title if you're looking for any kind of older, more mature young adult books. That is Summer in the City of Roses by Michelle Ruiz Kyle, who is the acclaimed author of All of Us with Wings. This one is inspired by the Greek myth of Iphigenia and also the grim fairy tale Brother and Sister. Michelle, for those of you who know her and also don't know her, is excellent at weaving in myth and fairy tale into relatively contemporary settings, as well as magical realism. So fans of even Melissa Elbert, fans of Anna Marie McLemore, fans of Francesca Leah Block, that is an author that Michelle gets compared to quite often, will love this book, and I would highly recommend it, and probably love Michelle's work at large. To get into the plot really quick, this follows 17-year-old If, who has spent her whole life protecting her sensitive younger brother, 15-year-old Or. But this summer, their kind of more activist mom has finally gone to an artist residency that she's wanted to for the whole summer in San Francisco. And at that point, their more conservative father decides it's time for his son to toughen up at a wilderness boot camp. Unfortunately for Or, their father decides the best way to do that is to have him kidnapped in the middle of the night by this boot camp, and without telling anyone else, specifically Or. Um, when her father finally breaks the news to If that is where Or is gone, If is understandably furious and decides to basically go rescue her brother from this boot camp. She storms off and gets lost in the maze of Old Town. This takes place in Portland in the early 90s. Michelle has grown up, spent 2 decades in Portland, and has raised her family in Portland. So it's completely infused with a really strong sense of that city and also specifically its activist history. When she gets lost in Old Town, she stumbles upon George, who is a queer Robin Hood character who swoops in on a bicycle, bow and arrow at the ready, and I mean that literally, offering If a place to hide while she tracks down Or. Her rescue mission brings her to Shiny Dancer, which is an advocacy organization dedicated to the support of sex industry workers, drug users, and other marginalized members of the community. What she discovers there is a world she's only encountered in her mother's stories of her life before If was in it, one that her father has preferably kept her away from. So this rescue mission kind of turns into this exploration for If as well. Or in the meantime has actually escaped the camp and fallen in with the Furies, an all-girl punk band, and immediately moves into their coat closet in their ramshackle pink house. In their first summer apart, If and Or must both learn to navigate their respective new spaces of music, romance, and activism, and find each other before a fantastical transformation fractures their family forever. So I won't give too many spoilers, but there is a pretty strong magical realist element bent throughout. This is again told through a dazzling lens of magical realism, steeped in myth. It is a tale about the pain and beauty of growing up. So this one also has, oh, sorry, we don't have to skip back, Stephen. Okay. I just want to look at that beautiful cover again, but this one also has amazing blurbs from Kelly Link, from Samantha Mabry, from Delilah Dawson. So if any of those authors are kind of up your alley or your favorites, this book is for sure for you. So. Great. Okay, I'm finally done. Thank you guys so much for sticking it out. Here is my contact information. But I want to say, if you guys are already in our booth, you can very easily explore any more of those titles there and make your requests directly in the booth. But if you need it, this is my contact information. I love hearing from everyone, and I hope to see you all in person soon. Thanks so much for joining us.